Hello, dear friends. This is Kardec Radio at 11 p.m., nourishing our souls with one more Hail Christ. Hail Christ is the book, this book, psychographed by Chico Xavier. The spirit author is Emmanuel. He comes to us to tell us about true accounts that happened in the 3rd century of our era, and we are here to learn more, not only about the historical aspects about it, but it's about our lives. Let's not forget that when Emmanuel was sent to coordinate the mediumship of Chico Xavier, he comes from an agreement of the highest spheres of the earth, from the 7th layer, I would say this way, 7th sphere, which is the governance of the earth. He sent a message to coordinate this new era, the healing, the true healing for us, which is the healing of the soul. Hail Christ is a book that tells us, and I will read it, the story of Quintus Varus and Tassianus, two souls connected by many reincarnations, who met each other once again in the 3rd century of Christianity in a region controlled by the Roman Empire. As an example of simplicity, trust, and love, the pioneers of the good news devoted themselves to serving Christ, having as their sustenance only their power and unshakable faith. This is a moving story that shows how much true love can accomplish in its manifestations of solidarity on behalf of human individuals. So, welcome to Kardec Radio, dear friends. Welcome to this very moment in which we are here together with you to learn more about our lives. These books, they tell about who we are at this moment. We can assess at each moment we're reading, we're assessing where we are and what we are still in need of achieving. Where are we in our story? Let us read in and out, because we're entering dramatic moments, but beautiful ones as well. Truth is unpostponable. One moment or another, we're going to face it. And that's what the book talks about as well. In the previous chapter, we stopped at the moment in which we've got to know of the story of some slaves that were being sacrificed because of their affiliation with Christianity. Amongst them, Rufus. And he taught us a lesson of this connection with God above everything else, turning his family to God and turning his soul as well to God, knowing that Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. But before we ended that chapter, there's a little bit more to it. When Rufus was being sacrificed, you know how Emmanuel describes, so I am allowed to share. I'm not being graphic, I'm just sharing what Emmanuel shared with us. And if he thinks we're strong enough to handle it, let us believe so, okay? So, at the very moment that Rufus is tied to a wild horse, and the horse runs and pulls him everywhere, so you can almost imagine 2 slow and sad hours of waiting went by. Okay, hold on a second. Sorry. I just skipped one minute detail here. When Rufus was being sacrificed, Cynthia, who was Quintus Varus' wife, watched the horrific scene from the high window of her headquarters. Remember, Cynthia is now married to Veturius, who was the owner of the slave Rufus. She saw it all. Seeing the animal run wild through the woods, dragging its helpless victim, made her faint from fear. And then, of course, her daughter Helen and other slaves assisted her. Tassianus was there for 2 hours. They were waiting by. They did everything they could to help her out, but then she started laughing. When she woke up, she started laughing in a mad way. Cynthia had gone mad. She became mentally ill. At some point, she escapes the guards and everybody and goes, because she became Christian, she goes to the Church of Lyon. Who does she meet? Brother Corvinus. She doesn't know, but Brother Corvinus is the very Quintus Varus who used to be her husband more than 20 plus years before that very moment. They meet. Quintus Varus knows her. She approached him and humbly begged, "Father Corvinus, I've heard about your work for a long time. You are an interpreter of Jesus. Help me, have mercy. I am sick and tired of it all." And she quickly added, "Don't you know me? I am the second wife of Opilius Veturius, one of the enemies of Christians. Pause for a second. Do you remember when she was young? When she talked to Quintus Varus for the last time, she said, "My son is never going to be Christian. I'm never going to allow it." Now, as she's older, tired, weary of life, she became Christian. She says, "My family thinks I'm demented. Who knows? What can a poor woman do but go mad when she has been completely cheated by life? Can the heart overcome irremediable pain? How can a tree survive the lightning bolt that strikes it? Can anyone stop a river with a twig? At one time, I was the wife of a man whom I didn't understand, and now I am a mother, the mother of a child who doesn't understand me. I'm exhausted. I was wrong. I preferred the hell of wealth when God was offering me the paradise of peace. When I disdained the husband who really loved me for the glory of the Spirit, I was seen as a level-headed woman. Now I am trying to restore my soul, and they treat me as if I were insane. I'm tired of illusions. I want the blessing of the consoling Christ. I yearn for renewal." She continued talking to him, but now we're gonna pause. Are you tired of illusions too? Because when we are young, we tend to fill our minds with illusions, all of us, like fantasies. And then life goes on, and we see that what we have been searching for doesn't fill us up. Do we need to wait for older age and be regretting our lives like Cynthia? If you ask, is it possible, Vanessa, to grow older and not have regrets? Yes, it is. I would say it is possible if we have a childhood that prepares us for it. Cynthia wasn't prepared for it in her childhood. So she went with the flow of the vain Roman life, wealth, fame, social status, like majority of people on earth nowadays. What about us? What about us? Are we rid of illusions? Probably not. But are we focused on how to get ourselves on track? These are questions we need to ask. Majority of us on earth encode things in life wrongfully. Why? Because we don't have enough instruction. That's why we need to keep reading and studying these immortal teachings to gain new insights and rid ourselves of the blind spots. Of course, from now to immortality, we're going to realize so many things that right now we don't. And that's great. Are we going to regret the past? No. Remember the tree? It has roots. They are the ones who come first. They're in the soil of the earth. They are blessed roots, because they are the ones that sustain the trunk, the top of the tree, the flowers, and the fruits. We need to learn how to bless the past instead of regretting the past. One thing is to repent, another is to regret. When we regret, we despise that choice. That's not self-love. If God allowed us to make those choices, we need to learn how to repent. Repent is, I realize that was wrong. I want to make everything different. So two different movements, regret and repentance. So for us, it's vital that we focus on how to bless the past, to gain strength, and rooted in those experiences that taught us differently and brought us to this date, we can move forward from present to future, blessing the past. Have you blessed your past? Cynthia cannot bless her past. She is in that moment in which she regrets it all. She's tired, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know where to hold on to. And we understand her. We do. So she looks at Varus. She doesn't recognize him as her former husband. And he starts crying. His eyes were filled with tears. She turns to him and says, "You're weeping? Only an emissary of the Lord would do that. I am guilty." And she says, "Forgive me, O God, my sins are great." Quintus Varus, whose aging face and long beard made him unrecognizable, leaned toward her. Overcome with spontaneous love, he whispered, "Cynthia, hope and trust. God never forgets us, even when we're led to forget him." A strange glow came over to her sick face, and she said, "Oh, that voice, who are you? How did you know my name without my telling you? Are you perchance a ghost who came back from the grave, or the shade of a man who died without ever being dead?" The missionary caressed her tenderly and kissed her hair, instinctively repeating the gestures of his younger days. Perplexed, the matron pulled away with a profoundly lucid look, as if she were suddenly being called to reality by a great emotion. She looked directly at him with inexpressible astonishment and cried, "Varus!" The way she uttered that simple name carried all the love and wonder she was capable of feeling. The apostle, however, waited in vain for the words that were lost on his discolored lips. Cynthia looked at him for a few moments in silence, with the look of ecstatic joy of someone who has found a long-cherished treasure. Varus rushed to support her. The dying woman grew quiet in his arms with childlike submission. Cynthia died in her first husband's arms. He prayed for her, "O Lord, who have mercifully brought us together, would not separate us forever. Divine friend, you give us the light of the day after the darkness of the night. Grant us peace when the storm is over." The prayer is longer than that, but I'm going to share with you. He prays, and of course, he lets her family know that she's there dead. Now, can you imagine the trouble? What's going to happen next? For Vittorius, Tassianus, the Roman patricians, it's an absurdity that she died there amongst the Christians. Of course, Vittorius asked for his arrest. Quintus Varus was just beginning. His martyrdom was just beginning. He was thrown into the dungeon. Brother Corvinus, Quintus Varus, began to feel the effects of the persecution of Vittorius, and many other people, authorities of the time, who appreciated Corvinus, Quintus Varus, tried to help, but he didn't help. He was imprisoned. He was going to be judged. He was going to be sentenced. But how was his attitude? It's important to observe the inner, because when we are reading this, we're imprinting those in our minds. So when our days of difficulties come, we may potentially bring that out and emulate these coaches of our souls. In all of Emmanuel's books, Mentor Joseph always says, "Pay attention, Vanessa, because these spirits that are mentioning the characters, they are role models for us." Of course, we're talking about the good ones, right? Of course. So, it's amazing because Corvinus was escorted into a large hall by the guards, Physically, he was pale. He was very thin because he was suffering from hunger in prison. He had several red wounds, whip marks, but his eyes were brighter. His eyes were brighter. It was not just patience that shone in them, reflecting his great spiritual greatness, but also the indefinable superiority mixed with understanding and pity for his torturers. These are lessons for us. Patience and his understanding that people who were doing those things didn't know any better. They didn't know. Quintus Varus, whose peaceful conscience seemed crowned with unruffled serenity, looked calmly and kindly around the angry assembly. When he entered the hall, the assembly was cursing him, but as he looked at them, they suddenly quieted down, as if they were overcome by an irresistible power. Now we're talking about vibrational emissions. Let us pause here, because this is a lesson for us. Vibrational emission. How about if in the next 24 hours we practice this? And what is the exercise? Let's say before you talk to a family member at home, because I know majority of us, if not all, we are in this quarantine, social isolation mode, so we can talk to the ones who are the closest. If you're talking on the phone, remember, before you talk, think, what vibrations am I emanating first? Because sometimes we have some vibrations, but then we put a mask. We're feeling angry, but then we talk to somebody and we say, oh, can you help me with this? But deep inside you're angry and people feel it. People feel it. So how about if in the next 24 hours we practice this awareness, vibrational awareness. What am I emanating? What do I want to emanate first? And then complement with words or gestures or facial expression, body language, if needed. Because sometimes all we need to do is to emanate. And then we're going to see that the secret of relationships lie in our vibrational chemistry. Not so much the words, but how we really feel about each other. How we really emanate our vibrational communication, I would say. Okay? So in the next 24 hours, observe how you're communicating through your vibrations. You need to observe your feelings, your thoughts, and really realize it. Let's all of us practice it, okay? Quintus Varus is showing to us that he already mastered in so many ways through his hard work and sacrifice, his vibrational emissions. He was already able to assess people and communicate through vibrations beyond just the emotional body language or even the words. That didn't mean he's controlling people. No. Vibrational emissions is not about control. It's about communication, putting something in common. What people are going to do with it, it's their problem. Like he's communicating, they are quiet, but that doesn't mean that they're gonna follow through. Right, friends? Welcome, welcome, dear souls. Yay. So here we are. So he says here, he stood up and of course they're telling him, you need to give up this thing about Christianity. And they say the false accusations that he killed a child, that he killed a woman. He didn't kill anybody. See, people, when they are in the illusions of life, they invent, they create fake news. And it's so common, it's ancient human movement that people create fake news about one another. So, he says, he's asked, I urge you to swear allegiance to the gods in obedience to Roman law. Vars responded with confidence and humility. Illustrious legate, in accordance with the lessons of my master, I have always given Caesar the respect that Caesar expects of me, but I cannot sacrifice to idols. I am a Christian, and I have no intention of abandoning my faith. The answer of this man was, what audacity. And then, of course, people are saying, death to the traitor. You dare to insult me? And he says, I beg your forgiveness if my words offend you, but you asked, and I answered. So then, you confess that you are a member of the cursed Nazarene sect? I see no curse in it. The followers of the gospel are the friends of fraternity, service, kindness, and forgiveness. And he listens to the reply. If Emmanuel is allowing us to know the dialogue, it's because there are lessons here. I know some people, when they read this, they skip some parts because I don't like it, why it's too much. No, but we need this educational dialogues to learn how to talk, sometimes with our own minds, when we think like the Antichrist or others. Because to date, it still exists. You're all just an old gang of liars. What kind of fraternity could an unknown Galilean teach you, one who died nearly 200 years ago? What service can you offer society by preaching rebellion to slaves with misleading promises of a heavenly kingdom? What kindness do you exercise by leading women and with children to the bloody spectacle of the circuses? And what forgiveness do you exemplify when your heroism is nothing but shame and humiliation? Vars realized his interrogator's intellectual hardness and said, our master died on the cross because he was the greatest brother of humanity that did not need brute force or violence, but moral understanding, so that it could grasp the grandeur of the eternal spirit. Service to us is not mutual exploitation, but people being free to work for the growth of each one's personal worth. Kindness is our realm of action. In our realm of action is, and the man Osseous cut him off, saying, hold your tongue. Why should I put up with your senseless sermon? Don't you know I can decide your fate? Our fates are in God's hands. Vars retorted calmly, don't you know that I can sentence you to death? Respectable legate, the transitory power of the world lies in your decisions. Obey Caesar, ordering as you see fit. I will obey Christ and bow to your will. Novatianus exchanged a meaningful glance with Victorius, as if they were in silent agreement, and cried, I will not tolerate sarcasm. He summoned one of the ADs and ordered the prisoner to be given 3 short lashes to the mouth. Varus seemed to be in prayer as he was whipped in the mouth. Can you imagine? The blood was flowing through his lips, running down onto his tunic. Suddenly, someone comes and says, Father Corvinus, I was helped by you. I'm going to die with you. I am also Christian. And Corvinus says, no. Christ did not ask us to march to death. Go in peace. Do not disrespect the emperor's legate. And then Corvinus said, when he was asked again to give up his beliefs, he said, I can't. I'm Christian. Then you shall die. He was sentenced to death. He was going to be decapitated. I'm just cutting short. But one of the people who are in the room is Flavius Subrius. Do you remember who he was? Flavius Subrius is that man who was at the sheep when Quintus Varus thought he was in a professional mission, but he was to be murdered by the orders of Victorius. Subrius was the one who was in there and didn't kill Quintus Varus. Said, I'm going to spare you because my father, your father helped me and my family, etc. He comes in the ears of Quintus Varus and says, nobody hears them, and says, look, I'm also Christian. And I know you're Quintus Varus. I recognize you. How come you didn't die? You're going to die today. Wouldn't it have been better to have died at sea after all? How it waits on me that I have been a party to your death. How I regret your unfortunate luck, seeing the burden of grief bending your back. Varus smiled sadly and replied, Subrius, slavery to Jesus is real freedom, as much as death in the company of our divine master is resurrection to life everlasting. There's only one burden we should fear, a guilty conscience. Subrius' tears, welling up in sincere repentance, said, if you're looking for some way to access the truth, don't put off your encounter with Christ until tomorrow. Do something for your salvation. The Lord will do the rest. And then the other ones were looking and said, come here, let me finish this up. And of course, the soldiers seemed overcome by disturbance and took him to jail. What happened next? While Varus is waiting for his death sentence, Subrius goes to Tatiana's house and tells Tatiana everything that he knows. Everything. He confessed. When you're a baby, when you're a little kid, I was supposed to kill your father because your stepfather wanted to marry your mother. Crazy as the story sounds, that's the story. But I didn't. I killed another man. And I'm telling you, run quickly to the place of execution because your father may still be alive. They tried to decapitate Quintus Varus, but they didn't go through. They tried 3 times. He was deeply hurt, but didn't die. They took him to prison to die slowly in there. Remember, Quintus Varus reincarnated to help educate the mind of Tassianus to Christianity. And yet, his life is a long journey of lots of challenges. We have to pause before we continue the story. Don't go away, because this story is about to explain to us many things. Often, we think that when problems happen, it's due to punishment towards wrongdoings of the past. Not necessarily. Look at Jesus. He didn't suffer the adversities of life because he was being punished. His martyrdom wasn't about punishment, because punishment doesn't exist, but he wasn't expiating it. In the case of Quintus Varus, he didn't reincarnate to expiate. He reincarnated in a mission. He was allowed to go to higher spheres. He decided to reincarnate to help Tassianus. Not only he's helping Tassianus, but he's helping so many other people. And yet, he's facing lots of challenges. Do you understand it, friend? That no matter what you need to do on earth, we're going to go through things because we need to evolve and because of the nature of our planet. Don't take the challenges of life as if life is telling you that you're a bad kid to God. Because punishment doesn't exist. There is re-education. There is education of the immortal being. Quintus Varus is not perfect. He needs to grow stronger to other levels. When you see spirits like our pure spirit, like Jesus Christ, how did he achieve that? By having everything like going through as a breeze? No. And you may ask, but Vanessa, will we have to go through this? I don't know. But in some ways, we will have to face lots of challenges, tests. It's pain evolution as well. In the book Action and Reaction, a spirit instructor shares with André Luiz and others that there are 3 types of pain. One is the one we know, karma, pain, expiation. That pain is what? From the inside out. There is guilt, there is shame. We encounter with situations that are embarrassing. we encounter with difficulties that really make us feel like we need to change. Because in the past, we made others suffer. But there's also pain evolution. Pain evolution is from the outside in. The stimulus comes. Which means it's life telling us, come on, let's be creative. Right now on earth, we can find the three of them together in some way. Some way. Because collectively, we are being asked to be creative. Because we need to work, to have money to feed ourselves and the family, and we can't go to work. So what else can we do? We need to be creative. Pain evolution. In some ways. For some, it's pain evolution. It hurts, like going to the gym. And there is pain that helps us, aiding pain. What is this? Or assisting pain. It's the one that blocks us from actually incurring greater mistakes. André Luiz talks about that in several books of his. He talks about when somebody has a heart attack induced by some superior spirit so he wouldn't commit a crime. In the book Memoirs of a Suicide, we see the little Margarita, the good spirits induce kind of some seizures in her so she could escape the abuse of men who were in her life and be taken to a hospital. Apparently, she was sick. Oh my gosh, seizures, crazy. But actually, it was a way to protect her from people who are abusing her. So I'm sharing this with you because when we look at Brother Corvinus or Quintus Varus, you may be puzzled, like how come he is reincarnated to help in a mission and yet he is facing all these difficulties. Even at death, he is not allowed. They say that spiritually there are forces that deviated the man who was to decapitate him, not to decapitate at once. Why? And you see next why. Because he needed more time. For what? To talk to Tassianus. Tassianus, after talking to Sobrius, goes with Vittorius, who denies it all. He says, no, I didn't do it. I didn't ask anybody to kill your father. And Sobrius says, I promise you that I will get rid of my life, but you go and you talk to your father because he may still be alive. And sure thing, he gets to prison. He sees Quintus Varus. It's beautiful and sad. Beautiful and sad. Because the encounter says, Hercules' blows had crushed Quintus Varus' collarbone and gashed his chest. Tassianus, overcome with unspeakable anguish, exchanged an unforgettable look with him. Enlightened by the truth which happens to great souls as they approach death, Quintus Varus said to him openly with effort, Son, I begged Jesus not to allow me to the grand journey without finding you again. I know that Flavius Sobrius told you what happened. The young man turned to Vittorius in terror, and his father continued, I know. This is Opelius Venturus, who raised you as a father. I understand how awkward it must be for him to hear this. However, I beg him to allow me this final conversation. Yesterday, Cynthia left the earth. Today, I leave it. The dying man smiled with resignation. Tassianus, revealing his own mental conflicts, let his emotions out and asked, "If you're my father, how can you be so serene? If Cyprius was telling the truth, isn't my stepfather your worst enemy? If Viturius ordered your death so he could impose himself on my mother's life, how could you have tolerated such horrible situation when a single word from you would have cleared up everything? Oh God, what is the way out of this dark maze?" The dying man, composing his facial expression once more, tried to extend a gesture of affection and said, "Tassianus, do not be troubled now, just as we are saying goodbye. Do not think of Venturius as an enemy of our happiness. Remember, my son, how he lovingly guided your development. No one attains personal dignity without selfless guides. Have you perhaps forgotten his devotion to your well-being? Sincere appreciation is a law for noble and loyal hearts. Even if he were a common criminal, he would deserve respect for the caring way he guided your first steps. You believe we should see him as an enemy of our house, but we cannot forget that he is the man your mother loved. I always honored Cynthia's wishes in their smallest details and could not fail to understand her heart's choices." He paused for a second, regained strength, and continued, "You must not think that I am misled by my sentiments. Jesus has taught me that love, above all, is the means of helping those whose happiness we are devoted to. Loving means self-sacrifice. I admit that the past could have been guided by other standards, but who amongst us can really discern the conscience of others?" And he turns to his father and says, "I do not understand how you can forgive me. You're too young to understand the storms raging in the heart. I too started out seeing life through the traditions of our ancestors. For me, Jupiter was the ultimate power, and I believed that men and women were merely beings that were either blessed or persecuted by the favor or displeasure of the gods. But then I met Jesus Christ, and I realized the greatness of the life meant for us. Each person is an eternal spirit growing toward heavenly glory. We're happy or unhappy because of ourselves. That's why we cannot grow without the blessing of great understanding. Divine justice is watching us. How then can we increase in virtue if we cannot forgive the hand that has wounded us? Resign yourself. Time calms all troubles." He keeps talking to his son, who says he can't. He dies. Tassianus is distraught. Viturius leaves them alone and goes away. In the lessons given by Quintus Varus, we could meditate here for hours. But what can we extract that shall be a very important exercise for us? He says about forgiveness. Of all things, of all things, he not only loves Tassianus, he not only loved and respected his wife, but he also understands who was supposed to be his enemy. He doesn't take Victorious as his enemy. I remember someone who divorced a man. And somebody came to this man and said, "How can you still be friends with your former wife? She abandoned you. She married another man." Quintus Varus is teaching us a lesson of true Christianity, Christ consciousness. When you love, you understand. And even when you don't love, you keep understanding people. Understanding and appreciating. Christ consciousness expands our way of discerning. It's not black and white. Life cannot be any longer decoded in 0 and 1s. Only computers do this, and the internet. It's 0 or 1. 1 or 0. But for us humans, it's beyond just 0 and 1. We need to stop seeing life linearly. We need to see life in all of its facets. He is able to see Victorious not as an enemy, but someone who loved his wife, whom his wife also appreciated and loved somewhat. Why should he hate him? It wasn't exactly personal, though it seemed to be personal, but it wasn't personal. And he took care of his son Tassianus. He was able to be grateful to him. He was always seeking the good. In chapter 10 of the book Thought and Life, Emmanuel shows to us that the secret to ridding ourselves from the shackles of the past is understanding. And understanding is equal to seeking the good always. Stop this duality of life, of thinking that there are polarities. It's beyond it. In divine justice, in divine life, it's not simply 0 and 1s. We need to seek the good. We need to feel the good, visualize it, and work with it, mold it. Quintus Varus is teaching us a lesson of understanding. He is inviting us to look at our lives and see the people who may be troublemakers in our lives, and instead of feeling ourselves as victims, you see, Quintus Varus never felt himself like a victim. That's where we fall short in strength. We feel victimized, like Cynthia did. Life cheated me. No. You made choices that led you to this weariness of life. I made choices. So now I choose to value all those instances. I choose to understand, and instead of battling with people, which André Louis says in the book In the Domains of Mediumship, mental battles. People may not go into true battles, mental battles with people. Now in this time of the coronavirus, it's time to come to terms with these mental battles. Those battles we cherish in our minds, in the back of our minds. We need to cleanse it, rid ourselves of it. That's our opportunity to grow more virtuous. That's what Var is saying. Tassianus goes back home. Quintus Varus discarnated without saying another word. The rest of the chapter is the beauty of his discarnation. Emmanuel describes to us that when Varus discarnated, and I'll read just a few things for you. He no longer saw the cramped cell, the walls disappeared. The hard bed was the same, and he could see Tassianus next to him, but the space around him was filled with spirit entities. Filled with spirit entities. Amongst them, he recognized the old Corvinus and the little boy Silvanus, who were lovingly looking at him. The holy apostle that had preceded him on the great journey of death was sitting at the head of his bed and now stroking his forehead drenched in the sweat of death. Silvanus, he was accompanied by a dozen of children who were singing for Varus. So, turning to Corvinus with words that the young patrician thought were the effect of hallucination, he spoke softly, strangely revived. He was still saying about Tassianus. He even meets other friends of the past of that other city, and he asks for one more opportunity to reincarnate. Claudius, the superior spirit who is in charge of guiding his life, gives him permission to reincarnate again. He wants to reincarnate near Varus, near Tassianus, within his circle, family circle. That's the end of the first part of the book. We'll talk more about it tomorrow before we transition to the second part. For now, we really need to absorb Quintus Varus modeling for us and go within and rid ourselves of those mental battles we have with other people in our lives. Understand, let go. Let us ask God that we cleanse our hearts. Put your hand in your heart and let us affirm to ourselves, I let go of these mental battles. I want to begin anew. I let go of these mental battles and I want to begin anew. I let go of the mental battles and I want to begin anew. I no longer want to duel, whether mentally or actually verbally, with anyone in my life. I understand everyone in my life. I seek the good. I feel the good. I visualize the good when we are going to be conciliated, reconciled, right? So let us visualize reconciliation on earth, because that's what we need right now. The coronavirus is about battle, war. We don't want to be vibrating it. We want to let go of war-like vibrations. At the beginning, we were talking about our vibrational power. We end by hoping that we transform it into a more meek, peace-making type of vibration, by letting go of the duels we have been sustaining the mind with people, especially in this life, and of course previous lives if we don't remember. For sure there were some. Let us visualize our planet Earth and waves of reconciliation amongst people. Let us breathe in and out. The vibrations of reconciliation as God is bathing all of us in the waters of reconciliation. Dear Lord of life, we want to let go of these mental battles and begin anew. We no longer want to battle mentally or in any other way with anyone, but understand and let go of the power struggles in our lives. With you, would like to pray for reconciliatory waves to be enveloped our planet Earth. May understanding be boosted in all of us. And all the leaders of the world receive these waves of understanding and reconciliation so we can be less violent, more peacemakers. We ask for your blessings and your protection to all of us. May all of our homes receive the shower of your healing light. Deeply grateful, trusting your loving care, we close these moments of reflection and prayer with you, thanking you for bringing Jesus Christ to our lives, and so be it. Thank you, friends. I see wonderful friends here. Jailton was asking, and thank you, Sol Souza. The name of the book in Portuguese is Ave Cristo. Thank you. Yes, forgiveness, right? Teresa Castro here with us. The spirits prevent acts from decapitation virus. Was this to allow his spirit per spirit more time to detach so he suffer less? I don't think so, Teresa. I think they allowed him because he asked for more time because he wanted to see his son. He knew Subrius was going to talk to his son. He had spiritual permission to be sustained to a longer death. Okay? You can see it. I hope it's clear. So I want to say hi to the beautiful friends who have been here with us. Carol Correa, thank you so much. Leia Severo, big hug to you. Teresa Castro, John da Rosa, Sunshine, thank you, Nora Brasil, Betty Cruz, thank you, Karina, Alice, Sol Souza, Jailton, Aline da Silva, thank you, Andréa Torres, Lisa Teles, Tissa Silva, Silvio Otero, thank you, friends, Daisy Gallen, thank you, Marilda Veiga, thank you, Florentine Maldonado, Hércules Fernandes, Eunice Carvalho, Pet Soares, thank you, friends, thank you, Angelita, thank you, Fred Gouveia, Thank you so much, friends. Emmanuel de Souza, friends, for being here with us at Kardec Radio. We wish you a beautiful day observing your vibrational powers, observing your capacity of reconciliation, and entering this new mindset of cleansing of our vibrations. A big hug to you. And until tomorrow here at Hail Christ, at Kardec Radio. One more moment for us to nourish our souls. A big hug to you. And until next time.